I obviously have Big Ben 1 minute off. Yeah.
All right, 6 p.m. We'll call this board meeting to order. If you'd all please join me in a moment of silence. And a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, you take the roll.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Ferguson. Trustee Charo.
Present.
Trustee Detmers. Here. Trustee Gerger. Here. Trustee Scherschel.
Here.
Village President Kimsey.
Here. Any public announcements this evening?
I'd like to thank everybody that showed up for our Veterans Day ceremony and for the soft opening of the VFW. Looking forward to being more active in the community.
Thank you, Liz.
No,
Any public comments on agenda topics? Hearing none. Trustee Scherschel, would you like to make a motion to bring the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Charo. Any discussion regarding the warrants for the minutes? Hearing none. Mr. Clerk, would you take the roll?
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Scherschel.
Yes.
No old business. Under new business, we have Representative of Lauterbach and Amon with us tonight to give the actuarial highlights, which is not a phrase that comes out of many people's mouths.
Exciting. Of course. So again, my name is Bob Rates. I've been here before with Lauterbach and Amon. I'm the principal and also an enrolled actuary doing your report for you every year. Instead of the full report, we do have this condensed presentation. I believe everybody got a handout for, so we'll go through this relatively quickly, but also be able to open up the question to answer anything you may have along the way. Okay, so going to the first page here. Recommended contribution. So when we talk about the recommended contribution, this is a little bit different than when you hear of the statutory minimum or what the state requires you to do. So this is a more accelerated version. So we're targeting 100% funding and we're amortizing your unfunded liability over a 15-year period versus the statutory minimum going out about 20 years to 2040. So a little bit more accelerated in both rates there. Looking at the contribution, top line, decreased by about $3,000 from the prior year. We never get to say that, but there's a good reason why. You had about a 35% asset return this year, which helped out a lot there. Looking at your market value, you went from 8.1 million with an increase of about 2.5 million up to 10.5. Crossing that $10 million threshold is really important. And the reason why is within the Illinois statutes, once you hit $10 million, you can invest more widely in equities. So previously you're capped at 45% equities. Now the pension board has the opportunity to take that up to 65%. Now this is all before the consolidation talk and all that stuff happens, but that does increase your exposure to equities and better returns, and you were able to realize a lot of that in this past year. The next slide item being actuarial value of assets. When we're doing funding of the plan, that's really the number we use. So what that means is you're going to have investment gains and losses. So we assume 6.75% return, or 6.25%, excuse me, each year. To the extent you get more than that, we call that an actuarial gain. To the extent you have less than that, it's a loss. Each year we know you're going to have gains or losses. You're going to have something, but instead of having this roller coaster ride up and down of your contribution, doing the actuarial value of assets, we smooth those gains and losses over a 5-year period. So you only take into account 20% of each gain each or loss each year. So it creates things that'll be a little bit less volatile, a little bit more predictable and going forward. And you'll notice now your actuarial value of assets is less than your market value. What that means is you had such a big gain last year, you've offset any prior losses you've had, and now you're deferring gains. So it's not a bad situation to be in. You have, in case the market should go down next year, 2 years from now, you have something to catch that reserve. You have something built up to kind of support that. If you were to, you have the option to try to recognize them today to reduce your contribution. With your contribution already coming down from the prior year, we didn't recommend that we try to accelerate the recognition of those gains, which we have done for some clients. Looking at your actuarial accrued liability, increased by about $930,000, which would be expected. Your existing liability is going to increase with interest about 6.25%. Your officers are also earning new benefits in what's called the normal cost. Each year of additional benefits that's being earned increases your liability. Then we do take out the benefits that were paid throughout the year to reduce the amount based on who you have as your retirees. And then I'm going to bring this down if you don't mind. And then your unfunded liability is what we want to see. We want to see a negative in your unfunded liability. So we're paying down that debt. That existing amount that we have out, about $5.5 million, it's going down. That's the right direction. And then conversely, your funding percentage is going up, both on a market value basis up to 69% approximately, and on that actuarial value about 64%. So you can see the difference there of what your funding percentage would look at. Just as a guide, the median for Illinois police and fire funds is about 55% as of a year ago. We don't have the data on. I think everybody probably came up with the asset returns this past year, but in line with you, 4 or 5 basis points up is pretty significant there. Any questions on that so far? I'm going to skip the next 2 pages because it's really supporting information, what I'm going to talk about on page 4. Okay. So page 4, we talk about the change in that contribution. Where did it come from? Why do we have a decrease? The first line item, we would have expected it to increase by about 3.25%. As we're amortizing that unfunded liability, it's an increasing payment schedule. So it's not flat like you might have a mortgage or something that you pay the same amount every year until it's paid off. It's an increasing payment schedule with regards to it's trying to be a similar percent of pay that you put it in. So as salaries go up, so with your contribution. So that's where we see an expected increase of $23,000. Salaries were a little bit less than expected this year. So long-term, we have a 3.75% long-term salary increase assumption. Actually came in under that for your active participants, saving you about $50,000 of liability, bringing your contribution down about $4,000. Other actuarial experience, this is really consists of 2 different components. One is just demographics. What happened to your population, active and inactive? And the only activity you had 1 new retiree. So whenever a retiree comes from active to a retiree status, but the plan usually takes a liability loss, which means the liability just goes up because you're no longer deferring benefits being paid in the future. They're being realized today. So now that liability usually goes up. However, that member is no longer incurring additional burden, so their individual normal cost or accrual of benefits goes down. So that's why partially you see a decrease in the contribution because you're not paying a normal cost for that member and you did not hire a new active to replace him who would then start earning benefits. We also had a small gain to the plan due to we changed the actuarial software we used to calculate the plan liabilities. So we went from an in-house system to a more commercially available, pretty much gold standard system that's out there today for actuarial software. We transitioned to that amount and we actually got to see a gain from that as well. So that's good news there. Another big item here being asset return greater than expected. Again, approximately 30+% return this year compared to 6.25. You're going to see a decrease in contribution for that. And then your contributions less than expected of $400 increases. This is just kind of almost a balancing item, if you will, because really we know, and we'll show this a little bit later, the contributions you made today were actually levied for or requested from evaluation 2 years ago, not just last year. So by the timing of when it's requested and budgeted and levied and collected, it takes usually about a 2-year process there. And that's why this shows an actual increase in contribution. However, you did pay pretty much right on, spot on what was expected to come in during the year. So just almost a balancing item there just to get everything to work itself out. Any questions there? Going to the next page. The recommended contribution breakdown. This is just, as I mentioned before, just a breakdown of where does all your cost come from. The normal cost, about $230,000 of the $707,000. The remaining $478,000 is the payment of that unfunded liability. So that $5.5 million unfunded liability amortized over 15 years, that's where that $478,000 comes from to get to your net full contribution. Okay. Next page, just looking to see what your market value of assets did. Began at $8.1 million, $665,000 of employer contributions, $122,000 of member contributions. your investment return just over $2 million. So it's actually a 25% return. I said 30 or 35. I apologize for overinflating that, but about 25% return, which is still really, really good, especially to the extent probably for most of the year you were still only invested at that 45% cap in equities there. So it's really good to see that return there. You're paying out benefit payments of about $457,000 a year and about $12,000 in expenses. So as a net, the fund grew about $2.4 million. One risk item we like to take a look at is if we take a ratio, if you take your benefit payments of $457,000, divide it by your ending market value of $10.5 million, we get a ratio of about 4.3%. What that tells us is you're paying out about 4.3% of your money every year in benefit payments. And the question is that good or bad? We think it's really good. Ideally, you would like that to be less than 6.25%. In theory, then investments, if you hit your 6.25, are paying your benefit payments. So then all the money that comes in from the municipality and the members are going to where it needs to go to fund for the future benefits and continuing paying down that unfunded liability. Here you're under that 6.25%, then any excess investments are also paying down that unfunded liability. So it's a real good ratio to be at. It means it's a pretty healthy plan right now. And we would like to, hopefully that continues in the future, which we will discuss on the next page. This is a graph or a chart that shows where your benefits payment's going to go in the next 5 and 10 years. So you're at $457,000 today. In 5 years, we expect it to increase just over 50%, up to $712,000 a year. And in 10 years, it's going to more than double, up to $982,000 a year. So what that tells us is one, all the inactive members today are still getting their COLA increases. They're 3% per year. That's built into this. And also you probably have some officers that are getting close to retirement age within the next 5 or 10 years. It might be, the 50 and 20 for the tier ones, they're getting close. And we start projecting that they may start taking their benefits within that 5 or 10 year period. And that gets built into here. I don't add this to try to scare you, because if you keep making the contributions as you have been and following the recommended amounts, that's all covered by this stuff, by these. So all those future benefit payments is all covered by the contributions you're making today. So you're pre-planning for those retirements, planning for those increases coming down the road. So it's just an item that, you can see the cash flows can really start to get bigger as the members age and start to retire a little bit more. Okay. Any questions on that? The next page is the risk management, which is basically what I just described on the ratio and also where the inactive members at. Go to the next page, the statutory minimum contribution as a reference. If to contribute what the state requires you to do, you guys do follow the recommended amount, but if you were to contribute what the state requires you to do, it's about $525,000 a year compared to that $707 that we saw in the recommended contribution. So again, this is only targeting 90% funded over the year by the year 2040. So it's about a 2019 year amortization period to get there. So you're on a more aggressive path, but in our opinion, a better path to be on to take care of these liabilities and not let something just kind of drag on that many municipalities have had happen, and it's just kind of snowballs and gets really bad shape down the road. So you guys are on a good path going forward, and hope you continue doing so. Next page, we talk about the contribution history. So now I'm flipping pages a little bit from the actuarial funding report to your financial statement accounting report. So we do 2 reports for you every year, one for funding to come up with a contribution amount, and then a second, what's called the GASB 68 report, which is what's used in the financial statements in your audit in regards to this pension plan. And part of what we'd have to do in that is not just disclose what your net pension liability or unfunded amount is. We also have to do what's called a solvency test or a crossover test. And what that entails is projecting your benefit payments out in the future, and also your contributions and assets where we expect them to be in the future. Part of doing so is we come up with this employer history and saying, how do we project what you're going to put into the fund in the future? Well, this tells us you're putting in the recommended contribution right at 100%, 99.9%. We think you're going to keep doing that going forward. So we think you're going to take care of that obligation of paying all those benefits and having enough money around to take care of all the future employees. So, and also to recognize that you can see here right at 100% almost every year down the road, this is where we take into account that 2-year lag difference from when the contribution was made, requested, levied, collected, all the way down the road. We line that up together, so it ties a little bit closer. And if you pulled up our 1/1 or 5/119 report, you'd see the amount that was in that report there. And you hit it right on the nose. Sometimes funds will put in just an extra contribution just onto the general fund just to make them match equally. I think you're close enough, you don't have to, or you may even do so, but still it's hard to hit that exactly 100% right on the nose. But, you know, being right there, 99 plus, we don't seem to worry about that at all. And then the next page is a graph that shows the results of that solvency test. So as long as that solid black line stays above that dotted blue line, means you're going to have enough money to pay benefits in the future for all your current employees and inactives. So the solvency test looks good. We can then use that same expected rate of return in the GASB report to value your liability. So your net pension liability for the financial statement side would be very similar to your unfunded liability from the funding side. Okay. And that is the quick and dirty version of the actuarial reports.
Anybody have any questions for Bob?
Thank you.
There's a lot of highlights in there.
A lot of highlights. There actually were highlights this year. Usually it's lowlights. Usually I'm giving bad news. Any year you have 25+% returns, that makes people a little bit on edge, and your contribution went down. It, you know, helps a little bit, but there's still some work to do. You know, still being 68% funded is, you know, across the board, you're better than Illinois, but when you think of Illinois compared to the country, we still fall behind considerably. So there's still some work to do there, but, you know, you definitely are on the right path, and hope, you know, again, keep going there is going to benefit everybody.
Appreciate it. So the requested contribution, just under $708,000. That's part of the levy notice that gets publicized. We've had a history of continuing to take the pension board's recommended contribution as opposed to defaulting back to that required minimum contribution that the state has. And that'll be the plan for this coming levy season. Item 2 is a resolution approving the Illinois Public Risk Fund and Illinois County Risk Management Trust Insurance Renewal Program. A motion to bring that to the floor.
I'll make that motion.
For a second, Trustee Scherschel.
Sure, second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk?
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Scherschel.
Yes.
Item 3 is an ordinance amending the Village of Chatham Personnel Code relating to anti-nepotism in hirings governed by the Board of Police Commissioners. We have a motion to bring that to the floor.
I'll move.
Trustee Detmers has made a motion. Do we have a second, Trustee Scherschel?
Second.
This adds the language that references that the Police Commission has a different set of overriding policies that they follow from the state. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Clerk?
Trustee Scherschel.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
Item 4 is a resolution releasing the letter of credit for Prairie Grove Estates Plat 6. Do we have a motion to bring this to the floor?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Charles made a motion. Do we have a second, Trustee Scherschel?
Second.
Second by Trustee Scherschel. This is the last plat in Prairie Grove, correct?
Correct.
Just off South Park, just north of Community Park. Jim Michael sent his letter. He's done his review and recommended releasing that letter of credit. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5 is an ordinance adopting the employee manual for the Village of Chatham. We have a motion to bring this to the floor.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Charles made a motion. We have a second, Trustee?
Second.
This covers all the changes that we discussed at the committee meeting 2 weeks ago. Any further discussion?
My only issue is I'd like to see a red line version of it instead of having to go back to the old and compare it to the new. It's 87 pages. And I just don't want, because it's been brought up before that you passed it, you should know it's in there. A red line version would ensure that all the changes we talked about got implemented. So that's where I'm at with it.
Wasn't the online version a red line?
No.
The committee was on the committee 2 weeks ago, had the red line version.
Oh,
Oh, I did not see the red line version. I looked for it.
It's 4 pages.
I agree with Brett. I also couldn't compare. It's just too long.
You have that, Greg?
I have a red line version, yeah, I can.
Is that the red line version?
That's the ordinance. The red line version was at the committee meeting 2 weeks.
Oh, I was gonna put it on there, but the file's so big. Yeah.
Wait a minute, hold on there.
That's the resolution.
We table this till the next meeting, so we have a chance to review them.
Yeah.
Let's see these little tabs. 3 pages. Where's that? Change. Essentially, the way the verbiage in there for what a work week was said in the past that it was 40-hour work week. Well, if in the union contracts, when guys worked 8 hours that day and they worked 4 hours that night on a water main break, they would get 4 hours overtime. The way the personnel manual read, it said they had to work 40 hours before they got any overtime. So if they had planned vacation on Thursday and Friday, they wouldn't show any overtime that week. So we changed it to 8-hour day. What else? There was, in the union contract, they had temporary lead worker. So when one of our lead workers leave, someone would step up and be the lead worker. So we put that in there at $2 an hour additional for that person when they're acting as that. It didn't address overtime on Saturdays, so that's in there at 1.5. And it's in there at 2 on holidays and Sundays.
And these are the only changes, right, that were
Yes.
made?
The ones that had little tabs next to them. The previous time that we had passed something was when we changed the 2% on the insurance back in, I think it was October. Huh? Was it October?
Anything we'll do?
No. I'm good.
Okay. Mr. Clerk?
Trustee Mao,
Yes.
trustee Churchill,
Yes.
trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Charo,
Yes.
trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Wait a minute. 6. Item 6 is an ordinance approving financing for the purchase of real property. Bring a motion to bring this to the floor.
Make that motion.
Trustee Miles made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll let Charo do this one.
All right, second.
Second by trustee Charo.
You're breaking the streak.
Steve, what?
Charo.
Okay.
This is in reference to the 2 parcels that we voted to acquire at the request of a couple of trustees, and also thought, you know, in my mind, we put this out for an RFP so that we could get indications of what the financing offers would be on this. The lowest bid came in at 1.09% for financing, which is 0.5% lower than the last time I said I don't think we'd ever see a lower number. So the recommendation is to approve that financing. Ultimately, the funding to pay that loan would come out of our capital projects fund, where we've accumulated this. Part of the overall kind of fund balance management and strategy that's in there is the state of Illinois has a number of grant programs that are coming out, and they're competitive grants. In that scoring, typically, if you're able to provide matching funds on a grant, you increase your score and increase your likelihood to leverage money like this. So I use the example of having available $155,000 if we were to apply for a grant, and suggesting an 80-20 split would in turn produce a grant potential of 620,000. So it takes that 155 that you saved in your cash balance and allows you a total potential of 775.
Which trustees asked that it be financed?
I had inquiries from Trustee Scherschel regarding financing. They asked if we were considering it. Trustee Ferguson had also asked about what rates would look like. So, and at those rates, I would also recommend that you accept this.
I asked in the meeting how this purchase was going to be funded, and I believe that you knew what I meant, because I'd said it numerous times in executive session, and that it was my understanding that we were going to pay this with cash. And I asked that clarifying question before the meeting, and I asked it during the meeting. So I feel a little misled in my vote to purchase the properties.
You can do it either way. With the type of funding out there, it's prudent to put the information in front of you so that trustees have the opportunity to evaluate all the information. Like I said, at 1.09%, with the state grant programs that are out there and the anticipation of what is coming out of the Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the recommendation is to continue to preserve as much free capital for potential grant matching as you can and further leverage those resources.
We had opportunities to finance other things over the last two meetings. I think we've purchased in excess of $166,000 of equipment that could also be leased to reserve capital, but that wasn't suggested here.
That's correct. Those came out of budgeted operating funds.
As should this, we set this money aside for this purpose. I don't see the reason to waste $7,800 of interest over the next 5 years.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
No.
Trustee Gerger.
No.
Trustee Scherschel.
I'm going to vote no, because I'm not going to be a deciding vote since this is my last meeting, since there needs to be consensus on a big vote like this.
Bring this up again in 2 weeks. Make a motion to consider in 2 weeks. Just a one. Bear with us for a second.
sand timer already ran out. Still see you're selling stuff. Did Kira attend the board meeting last night? Is she coming over tomorrow? Or is she coming over tonight? We,
We should talk out loud. I don't know what's the secret.
Yeah, sure. So the question is, on a motion to reconsider, what the appropriate procedure is. So there are really two options. One is the mayor can vote no, and then he would submit a list of issues he has with the ordinances proposed to the council, and the council would be required to reconsider this at the next meeting. The other option is at the next meeting, the board has the ability to act upon a motion to reconsider, and if that motion to reconsider passes, then the ordinance can be brought back to the floor.
So with trustee Churchill not wanting to cast a deciding vote here, which is fine, and knowing that trustee Ferguson had expressed some interest in it, would you be willing to take that reconsideration route at the next meeting?
Asking me?
Yes.
No, I'm ready to vote. I voted no.
yeah, I still would be a no.
I'd say bring it up when Meredith gets here. Does she express interest in it?
So I'll cast a no vote to leave both of those options available. Does that work? Okay.
Does the mayor get to vote if we have a
It's 3-2.
3-2?
Takes 4 to,
Doesn't take 4.
I can vote at any point. There.
It takes 4 to pass something, right?
Correct.
Not
We're not
to-
passing it.
Not to kill it.
My vote's on the record. Item 7 is an ordinance.
Hold on, before we go on, he does get to vote in a no?
Let me
Yeah,
confirm.
I don't think you can vote in no. If it's an affirmative, you could. His vote is to unbreak a tie. There's no tie.
I'll be on the record saying not approving that financing at that rate is the wrong choice to be made.
Again, I'll go on the record as stating that I said that originally, I said it before the meeting, I said it in executive session, I said it during the meeting. You guys all had the opportunity to tell me that this was your intent, but you didn't. And it could have been that easy, but again, It wasn't.
And we could have taken that right for multiple other purchases in the last.
We spent more in the last 2 meetings than on this purchase. No one suggested to finance those at all.
And this is 1.09% just for 5 years.
Correct.
We set aside $500,000 at the beginning of the year for capital purchases. This is a capital purchase, the second one. Again, we're not suggesting we spend the $500,000. Those funds could be spent by other departments and provide services to our citizens. We're choosing not to.
I think we have enough in the minutes that once you figure it out, we could still move on.
Okay. Well, if you want to move on, I can get the answer.
Item 7 is an ordinance authorizing the disposal of certain property. Could I have a motion to bring this to the floor?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Miles made a motion. Do we have a second? Trustee Churchill.
What is it?
Disposals
Getting rid of
of old
stuff.
equipment.
Oh, sure.
Trustee Churchill made a second.
I'm included with that.
Do we have any discussion?
The only discussion I asked Greg prior to the meeting is, do the bikes need to be turned over to unclaimed property?
I actually have an answer for you on this one.
Yeah.
Quickly. No, we got them, so they're fine to be disposed of in this way.
And they're bikes that were left in the village parks, or how did we acquire the bikes?
Left out, stolen, no one ever claimed them, who knows? I mean, left on the side of the road, I mean, numerous reasons why.
I mean, it's not something new. This is things we have over the years. Yeah.
All right, any further discussion?
No.
We do our best to contact the owners, let them know if they do have a bike stolen, we do contact, we do follow with people that's, bicycles stolen in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Clerk.
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Schedule of meetings as Utility Oversight Subcommittee, 6 p.m. on December 13th. Village Board, 6 p.m. on the 14th. Committee of the Whole follows 6:15 or thereafter. Planning Commission, 6 p.m. on the 16th. Village Board, 6 p.m. on December 28th. Public Properties and Recreation Commission, January 22nd.
That's a Saturday.
That date will be revised prior to January. Are there any public comments on any village business?
I have one. President Kimsey, fellow board members, as you know, tonight is my last board meeting. My family and I will be moving to North Carolina, and we want to thank the Chatham community for providing such a wonderful place to start and grow our family. It was here that my wife Kira and I were married and members at St. Joseph's Catholic Church, and our children attended Chatham Baptist and Glenwood Elementary. We have appreciated all the opportunities to get involved and serve in our town in our own individual ways. Kira will miss her students, parents, and fellow teachers after being a teacher for 17 years at Glenwood Middle School. She also loved being a fitness instructor and personal trainer at PowerWorks Fitness. I will certainly miss my colleagues, friends, and donors at the Prairie Heart Foundation. It has been a special honor to serve this community on this board the last 5 years, and I want to thank our constituents directly for all the times that they have reached out to share their concerns, have had me in their homes to discuss concerns over coffee, emailed, called, and got involved. And I want to encourage them to keep doing that. Reach out to this board. It's not easy serving in public service, but if we start at a baseline of having honest and open communication, an open mind, and a desire to do the right thing, you have to be headed in the right direction. Our family is excited for our new adventure, but we are both sad to leave and grateful for all of the wonderful friends and memories we have made here. And as we leave the lane of Lincoln, I want to share with you one of my favorite quotes from him. It's, "I have an irrepressible desire to live till I can be assured that the world is a little better for my having lived in it." And I hope I have made some small difference here. I know this community has made a huge difference in our lives, and we wish you all the best, and may our paths meet again. Thank you.
So, Paul, we want to thank you for 5 years of service to the board. I always appreciate somebody that I can have it, which usually turned out for us, long, extended intellectual conversations. It's nice to have somebody that challenges us, challenges me, helps me push. It helps push to come up with better ideas and do it. Just earlier this week, we were talking about one of the things that I always think is relevant and really important for anybody that serves on an elected position. And you hit it on the head. These are hard. It's very difficult to do. It's hard to put yourself out there. And despite any times where you may feel challenged, may feel that you've been beaten down or you don't want to do it anymore, when you stop and you take that breath and say, are we better than when we started? That answer is yes. I think that's a resounding yes, and you played a part in that. So we wish you, Kira, and the kids much success. Good luck with this next chapter in your life. You will be missed. Your whole family will be missed. You guys, as you said, were intertwined in the family. So I did go ahead and make sure that you had one thing to do on Lonely Tuesday nights. This is with your name still listed as a village trustee, is a copy of your last village agenda that you can hang on that wall. And every Tuesday night you think that, man, I should be doing something. What should it be? You can look over at that. So Paul, thank you for your service, and we wish you guys all the best.
Thank you.
With that, Trustee Scherschel, could we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Wait a minute. Did we ever get a resolution on number 6?
Vote.
I think we have enough in there that will.
So I haven't found in the ordinances yet where the mayor is prohibited from that vote because Chatham doesn't vote or doesn't have alderpersons by
District.
ward or trustees by district. The mayor is entitled to vote statutorily. That being said, that could be limited in our ordinances, but I didn't find that yet.
question is, did you vote yes or no? Or did you just not vote?
I voted no
You voted no.
because I didn't want to advance it. Yeah.
Yes.
3 no's, 2 yeses. All right.
So, yeah, we have enough. We're fine. So Trustee Scherschel's made a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Mao. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting stands adjourned.